welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Here with Benji, as always, for the Giro d'Italia Stage 4 from Venosa to Lago Laceno. This was why we have wall-to-wall coverage thanks to GCN Plus. Plug to come later, don't worry. But yeah, this is one of those stages where you should tune in from kilometer zero. And the stage design of this Giro in the first four stages compared to last year, night and day. We had a pure sprint stage, which wasn't too dull. We had a great mixed sprint stage yesterday for the versatile sprinters. We had a TT, and today we had just the perfect mountain break stage. Maybe it could have been better with some GC action at the end, but yeah, 276 Ks with three long climbs, the last of which the Colle Moella, 9.7 K, 6.1% with the last 4.5 Ks, 9% with a false slide at the end. Benji, we had not seen a early days breakaway win in a World Tour race yet this season. I mean, even today it was a close run thing. I feel like some teams, they see it and then they see how close it is and then they're like, maybe we do want the stage win, or I don't know. I thought it was a really good stage.
I think so as well. The breakaway formation phase is something that I love seeing in these Grand Tour stages because there's so many small intriguing things. Which teams are closing which teams? Why are they closing the gaps? Are there certain riders they are trying to mark? Are there certain teams that they are trying to mark? Which riders are heavily trying to get into breakaways in these stages and might do it again in the coming stages that are very similar? So there's so many things during these stages that, well, I want to see at the start of the broadcast. But before we get into the breakaway formation, what's up with Jay Vine and Cars? What does he have against Team Cars and Bottles taking it?
Yeah, he was holding onto the car and then I think the car accelerated and he was still holding on and he went off balance, kind of like when he was taking the bid on in the Vuelta 2021. And it was very similar where the bike bucked underneath him and he held it up this time. So I guess progress, but yeah, that was scary, especially as, Jay Vine stan to watch. I picked him for a couple of stages, but yeah, he held it up and otherwise it wasn't too eventful for him for the rest of this day. But I picked his teammate Brandon McNulty to win this stage. When I saw him bring Almeida back yesterday, pull up stumps, put a gel in and lose 4 minutes intentionally, I didn't take that or read that as Brandon McNulty having bad legs. I've seen him be too good in other stage races after that, and he's on his day really, really good. And Quickstep kind of called this to everyone by saying, we don't want pink anymore. And so literally every team just about that wasn't Quickstep, wasn't Ineos, they're like the only teams, and Jumbo, and even they tried a little bit, were like, we got to get in the break. There's 150 riders that want to get in pink, or because they're still quite close, and McNulty was one of them. He tried, I don't know how many times Brian McNulty tried. And maybe Quickstep don't want me to be right on the podcast, and that's why they rode that way. I think that's pretty plausible as an explanation, that they're trying to make me look bad. Also, me having picked Leknesson the other day, and then he gets in the break later. We'll get to that. But why Quickstep so anti-Brandon McNulty getting in the breakaway, who I think is a great stage hunter, but I don't see... He's 5 minutes down, by the way. I don't see him as a serious GC threat if he takes 2 minutes, i.e. the break wins by 7 minutes.
And to be clear, it's very specifically Brandon McNulty, because I rewatched the break formation phase during the middle of the stage when it was kind of calmed down, and I noticed the first 5 times that McNulty was going in that breakaway, Quickstep was responding by having Ballerini try to close him down, and then Czerny was doing the same. Meanwhile, Seri was having a mechanical, and then a group gets away with 12 people, including McNulty, Kung, Healy, so a group that is on paper not very dangerous. Kung's closing GC in a minute, so he can take the pink jersey, but he can have 20 minutes for all I care.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 might be a lot, but 10 minutes for all I care, he can have it. Then Healy, I'm fine with him having 5 minutes in GC as well on the Remco and so forth. McNulty the same, like he has had amazing days in the Tour de France last year, for example, where he was with the best, but he has shown to be so inconsistent throughout that, well, I wouldn't mind him gaining the pink jersey or gaining time, even with the idea that having McNulty in the pink jersey might create chaos in UAE, because then they have to try and mix 3 riders for GC. So that's a bit more difficulty.
Well, exactly. Let's think about, okay, McNulty's in pink now. Is he going to drop back and lose time and maybe lose pink if Almeida or Vine have a problem? You just
Yeah.
add that element of doubt. And also, he's on 5 minutes for a reason. Like, you look, if you're going to win this Giro, which I presume Remco wants to do, I assume that's his goal. And same with Roglic and Ineos, etc. Maybe Ineos aren't trying to win this Giro. If you're trying to win and you don't think you can put 3-4 minutes into Brandon McNulty on Bondone on the final TT, then you're not going to win this Giro. And that's not a knock on McNulty. It's just like, as I said, really, really good rider. I thought if he made the break, he was going to clean it up. He probably would have, in my view, but he wasn't allowed to. So Quickstep then, I think they were in pursuit of the perfect break, which they eventually got. But I think they were in pursuit of the perfect break, which is sometimes you just have to say, I didn't ideally want him in the break, but he's on 5 minutes. Okay, Seri pace. You're going to have to keep it at 7 minutes. And listen, if you keep it at 7 minutes, it's going to come down at the end because breakaways, they get to 10 minutes. They don't keep pacing because like all the other guys are like, well, we're not going into pink. Why would we keep pacing when we have the stage win on offer? So breakaways have this self-limiting thing on themselves anyway, that they control themselves. So they really just, I don't know, what did this remind me of? But they blew Ballerini's doors. Yeah, a little bit. But that was just Poggy stage win. That was, you can disagree. Okay, Poggy, why are you going for every stage? That's maybe stage 9 was a bit weird with UAE, but or stage 10 with Majev. But here, I think they were just way too concerned about that group, and it then caused chaos for the next hour.
Yes, and the thing that you said that I want to spark towards is the factor that you say they kept trying. They overextended, I would say, to the point that Ballerini was dropping, Czerny was dropping. I'm fairly certain I saw other Quick-Step riders drop in the meanwhile as well. Said he had his issue earlier, so came back, but maybe dropped as a consequence of that.
I swear Hirt was in trouble.
Hirt was in trouble on the first categorized climb, or one of the first categorized climbs?
At the back a little bit.
Exactly. So they are spending more energy than they probably would have wanted if that first break was gone. Then you'd probably expect Czerny to be at the front for the first half of the race, or Ballerini to focus that work, and that would go much further into the race. And if you think that true, I think Klaas Lodewijk recently said in Belgian media, the DS that's in the car when it comes to Quickstep, he said along the lines of, in the first week we can actually control because there's not going to be much energy spent. But I do feel like they spend too much energy in this first half of the stage.
Well, that's what I want to pick up on, because then we go into the next phase. And listen, if you want to, here is the plug. If you want to watch this break formation, if you want to watch part of this stage, I would really recommend, if you love tactics, if you love, okay, why is this GC team doing that? And it's kind of, this is the sort of stuff I really love about cycling, is watching like why they're doing this, why they're doing that. Jumbo going to move with a secondary rider. GCN Plus is the best place to do so because they have wall-to-wall kilometer zero coverage of the Giro d'Italia, and we have 15% off an annual pass in selected territories for you LRCP listeners. Long-form highlights, short-form highlights, and yeah, if you're a hardcore cycling fan or a degenerate, which if you're listening to this podcast, you are a degenerate. Sorry, that's what you are. You're a cycling degenerate. GCN Plus is the best place for you to watch along and catch up. And I'm going to go back and watch it again because, even I missed a few things. I was up in the mountains and not a plug, but I run the AirPod system.
What do you mean not a plug? You were going to sponsor, put in the mountain as a sponsor.
Well, no, I realized that, I like listening to the audio when I'm sort of hiking a little bit, and I think you can do that on an iPhone. Anyway, we get into the next phase. The break hasn't gone, and we're coming up to the first categorized climb, and there's just attacks, over and over and over and over. Quick-step riders are looking in trouble, and all of a sudden, I see Thymen Arensman moving up a little bit for Ineos. I see Sepp Kuss moving up as well, and now I'm thinking, Remco is pretty much at the front. I can't see too much of white jersey Van Wilder. Isn't this the perfect time now for a Buitrago, Sepp Kuss, a Thymen Arensman, a Sivakov to slip in a breakaway, and UAE to get a rider like McNulty in a break? And now and this was a big group, by the way. This was a group of like 15, 20 guys that could have gone when Pino was sprinting at the top of that big categorized climb. Quickstep were very like we've done a huge discussion now on, okay, Quickstep could have done this, could have done that, spent a lot of energy. Ultimately, being isolated doesn't matter. It's like when people in NBA, they say, oh, well, in the finals, in a small sample size in the finals, oh, this team shot way better than they normally do from the 3-point line in game one. That's why they won, but they still won game one. You can't be like, oh, well, that was, not the best course of action. But if they still won because of that, it doesn't matter if they change things in the future or whatever. Or what I'm saying is no one took advantage of it. Like Remco being isolated, that doesn't matter if Ineos don't move, if Bahrain don't move, if I think Jumbo, they were trying to move with Koos at the end of that first categorized climb into the break. And that's what they should be doing, because imagine a group of 20 go with those guys, with Koos, with Aronsman. Then all of a sudden, Quickstep got a real shit fight on their hands.
It's like last year during the Tour de France when we were expecting Ineos to use their secondary leaders, their Pidcock, who was close in GC at that point, in like a move to try and put pressure on the main teams, and mainly UAE at that point, if I recall. That was still in the early parts of that Tour de France, but they didn't. So I feel like Ineos often skips the idea of using their multiple leaders to their advantage. And, well, spoilers, in this stage, they don't do it, and we'll get to that towards the end either. But we skipped one very vital part last podcast. At the end, we were talking about the legendary GOAT, Joao Almeida, and what he would do on this stage.
He tried to prove us right, is what he did.
Yeah, he dropped at some point in the stage. I don't know how.
Exactly. That's what we said. There's no reason for it. There's no rhyme or reason. All of a sudden, you see Joao Almeida in group 20 seconds behind in a rainy descent. And you're like, there's our boy. He's trying to lose time today. And then they dropped. Then McNulty had to stop attacking and form low at the front, and they had to draw. I think Vine was at the back too.
Yeah.
And then to drag him back. So he got back, but I mean, if you're an Almeida stan, which I know some of you are, it was probably you just expected at this point that he's going to do that. I expected him, if someone attacked, he would drop on the final climb too. But yeah, he came back. Eventually, the breakaway kind of forms on the descent of the first categorized climb, with the break Quickstep always would have wanted. And I think they just kind of escaped a little bit. Or maybe they played a masterclass where they're like, eventually everyone's going to attack. Ineos will chase Koos if he goes in the break. Butrago will get closed by Baumann if he goes in the break. And they did 5,000 IQ, and they eventually get the break they want with Paripantra, Conchi, Albanese, Bargi, Legnesson, Gebregs, Gabish, Guns, Almiral. Now, why is it a perfect break? A, none of those guys are GC threats. B, they're all pretty strong. C, they're all teams that would be really, really happy to defend pink. So, yeah, that's why it was, the perfect break in the end.
Exactly. And the riders that were in there, the Paripantra, Conchi, Albanese, Barguil, Leknesson, Gebreg, Zabir, Squin, Zarmirais of the world, one of them disappeared because Zarmirai has his usual Shas Patat. I swear he's done this more before. At least that's what my girlfriend tells me, and I believe her. But anyway, we notice afterwards that breakaway is ahead. The gap goes from 1 minute to 2 minutes to 3 minutes to 4 minutes and a half for a bit, but then Quickstep starts spacing in the group behind, or continues spacing in the group behind with the riders that were initially dropped. And honestly, despite their idea of pacing a lot at the start or doing stuff at the start, one of the guys that was an MVP in this race for me is Josef Czerny, because he did that work initially, as in trying to work for the break formation, trying to close down the breakaways that were getting away. But if we go into the further stage in the race, after the break is formed, he takes over at the front already again, and he starts pacing again. But he's doing that. Obviously, he's kind of half dead, but he's still doing that to the tempo that it's closing down to 3 minutes. Like, regardless,
3 minutes,
regardless of the tactics, we'll go to the tactics in a second. But regardless of that, then he drops again and he returns again and he starts pacing again until 12K to go. But you've got some issues with the 3 minutes.
Well, no, I agree. Czerny is a really useful rider. I mean, I don't know what he's on. He just won a Romandy TT, a World Tour TT. And I don't know if he's still on 70 grand. Maybe he's on a little bit more. He did win the Giro stage, the protest stage back in the day, and whenever it was, a few years ago when he was on CCC. But he's worth his weight in gold. Just so versatile. And these are long climbs. I knew he'd come back. But this is where I also got really confused. And again, it doesn't matter. Like, for this stage, what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter because no one took advantage of it. And so if no one takes advantage of it for the rest of the Giro because they're going to play passive, then who cares? But Quickstep paced the gap down to 330, and Leknesson's on 140, right? So he's the closest GC guy in the breakaway. He's on 140, and then he takes pink. So we are all clear, right? We're not worried about Andreas Leknesund having a 4-minute lead on GC. Are we? I mean, I think we're in agreement. Everyone listening's not in their head. So why are Quickstep bring it down to 3 minutes? Why are they driving it, bring it down that climb? Why are they pacing the early part of the last valley after the second categorized climb? And I was thinking, oh, clear answer is what you said about Pikachu. Remco wants to win the stage.
Yeah.
Because he's got diamonds. That's why you would, because they're going to lose minimum 90 seconds on the final climb, more likely 2 minutes plus if you go full beans. And so I was thinking, oh, Quickstep going for the stage. And then all of a sudden, they stop. Quickstep stops. Remco is at the cars for ages. He's taking his kit off, P-brake. It goes to 5:55. And then Quickstep go back to the front with first Seri, and he puts it in a line again, putting it down to 5 minutes. And I'm like, why does it matter if Leknesund's at 5 minutes versus 6 minutes? Like, I don't know. And Bettiol also came up and he was talking to Remco, and Remco waved him, but the cameras didn't show the interaction. But I wonder what that discussion was too. We're just like, why is this in a line right now? And then Hirt does a big lead out too before Catania, before the climb, which is a curious order. And then suddenly it's down to 3 minutes. And all the while in the breakaway, by the way, there was a phase now with the breakaway with this tight gap. That meant that Trek, theoretically, for that time was at 3 minutes, couldn't use numbers. The breakaways just had to roll turns full gas for like an hour and a half.
Yeah. And I do want to mention, like, when you think about a potential reasoning behind what Quickstep is doing, is there like an idea of, for example, they want to make sure they don't necessarily go hard the entire time, so they take a break to make sure the riders that are suffering can come back from their team to then go again? That's like the only thing I can see in there. But I do agree that even if this breakaway goes to the bottom of the last climb with, let's say, 7-8 minutes, who cares if Leknesund has the pink jersey or who else was in that group? Like, if anyone, Parapantra is in that group, Barguil, if they get a pink jersey in 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute advantage in the time trial, everybody except Leknesund will lose at least half of it. And on Crans Montana, they're in the shadow realm. So,
bro, based on Leknesund's cadence today, he ain't getting up Monte Lusari. There ain't a chance. Based on his cadence today on 9%. So, yeah, he's going to OTL or DNF on Monte Lusari. So, yeah, I wouldn't have worried about it. I agree. Maybe the theory is, okay, burn Seri and Cherny on the flat. They're in the wheels. They're not, they're not going full gas like Remco. And then we'll go easy on the climbs, let it out on the climbs again. That kind of makes sense to me. Anyway, let's transition to the breakaway. The breakaway, because of what Quickstep did, letting it back out again. And there was a moment where I was like, are Bora going to take it up for Vlasov? Are Ineos going to take it up for Gegenhardt? And I do wonder if Gegenhardt, if Thomas wasn't here, would they have gone for some bonus seconds? Like, in this sort of finish, Benji, I would take Gegenhardt third. I'd have Remco, Roglic, let's split them 50-50 chance with no Ciccone. You know who's went 1-for-1 with Ciccone at Valenciana in these finishes? Gegenhardt.
Yeah.
And I feel like if Thomas wasn't here, Ineos would have been like, if you're going for the podium, this is a nice finish for Gegenhardt. Anyway, that aside, Break is going to win. But Trek, Benji, let's talk about Trek. They're the only team with 2 guys in the break. Sorry, I forgot Bruno Armourel Chaspatat, but sorry, lost to history. They got Schoens and Gebregsgebir in the break. Schoens was struggling on the second last categorized climb. And I was thinking, they got to play Schoens in the valley or on a roller or something once Quickstep led it to 550, because you surely have to be worried about Parapantra and Leknesund. Leknesund's very, very talented after a hard day. Parapantra had very, very good watts per kilo on Loge de Garde in Paris-Nice. Gebregsgebir did a lot of work. I thought the play was to use Schoens in the valley and have Gebregsgebir sit in the wheels.
I think so.
At the very least, on the shallower climbs. So this climb's in 2 parts, by the way. It's 5Ks at, let's say, 4%, 5% draft heavy, 4Ks super steep.
I agree with you. They should have played their numerical advantage on the group earlier on than they were doing in the race itself, because we didn't see that action. We didn't see a Screens going early on the valley. We didn't see a Gebregsgebir even going early, even though he looked stronger. You never know if Screens was playing an Oscar-worthy performance. but we're heading towards that final climb. We're heading towards that first portion, and we don't really see that move. We don't see the move by any of them, and they just keep rolling
Yeah.
in the group. And Leknesund, despite needing the Maglia Rosa, was not doing most of the work either at this point. And we get to the steepest portion because that initial bump before the proper climb didn't really do anything.
No.
And we see Nicola Conchi making a move, and that's when Trek actually started doing something with their numerical advantage, as in they used Squins to bridge over to Conchi, and that puts the others in that second group, in that group that still has Gebreigzabir in the group, into a position where they need to chase. But I agree with you that they should have used that numerical advantage earlier than that, because at that point you're on the terrain that fits the others better.
And also the draft is less relevant on these gradients.
Yes.
It still matters, of course, but yeah, it's a much bigger sacrifice pulling someone in the wheel at 3%, 4%. And Skuns, I would also say, is stronger on the 3, 4, 5, 6%, not the 9, 10, 11%. Skuns is very good after a hard day. He's won, I think, Tre Valle Varasina back in the day, and he's been good in those sort of one-day Italian classics. So he is good on these sort of climbs, and he is quite fast in a sprint. He was the last man leading out Pedersen yesterday, actually. But yeah, I would have used him a little bit earlier, I think. And here's where the stage is. Here's where Pink is won. Skuns bridges across to Conchi, drops him. And by the way, Conchi and Leknesund, they were both in the Arctic race final stage break. Or no, Conchi was chasing Leknesund, which is kind of curious. Albanese gets Lenton fully chasing. Leknesund doesn't take a pull at all.
Crazy,
ice in his veins.
But isn't that a mistake by Albanese? Because he knows that Leknesund needs the Maglia Rosa.
Yeah. And surely they would have pulled. Like, say Albanese just stops.
Stay in the wheel. Why not?
Like, he stops when Skuns goes. Okay, maybe Leknesund attacks him, but...
And he's got the sprint. So
yeah,
people want to drop him.
Maybe he was trying to maybe he was not even looking at Skuns, and he was looking at his power meter, and he's like, I'm going to hold this power and hope that these guys don't attack me. Maybe, but then he brought back Skuns. So I don't know, because he brought back Skuns, Leknesund immediately counters him, and Albanese's dropped off the back, and Skuns gets on his wheel. So poor old Albanese, he did have the quickest sprint in the group, but he got worked a little bit. And then Gebreigzabir is sitting on and relaying with Paripantra and Leknesund with Skuns behind. He eventually stops doing that after a couple of relays, so maybe Skuns can come back. And then Leknesund through a steeper section. I swear this guy was doing 50 RPMs in the biggest gear, in the drops, kind of Carthy style actually. Just drops Gebreigzabir off the wheel. I mean, he must have been doing big watts. It just didn't look like a big attack because he wasn't. he was doing a torque interval, and he even gaps Paripantra off the wheel a little bit later, and he puts him behind, and it looks like he's going to ride away for the stage win at that point. It levels off a little bit, and Paripantra comes back. So I don't know if I'd love to see the power files of this, whether Paripantra rode smoother and Leknesund rode a little bit up and down. It was. I kind of thought, I felt like this whole climb up to this point, Leknesund was going for stage win, not pink. And he only went to pink later on, like really late. I swear he was going for stage win at this point. Because why would you surge like that?
If you're Leknesund, though, and you're in this position, you're in this stage, potentially winning a Giro d'Italia stage, potentially getting a pink jersey, I do value a stage win over a day in pink or 2 days in pink or 3 days in pink, because it's probably whoever ends up in pink at the end of this stage will have it until stage 7 on paper. And then it's probably going to switch when it comes to the person that holds it, considering the gap was toning down towards 3-4 minutes compared to the peloton at this point. So you're right, but I don't necessarily blame him for choosing the stage win over pink.
No, I would have done the same thing at this point.
If he knows he's strong enough to potentially get the stage win, and if he doesn't get the stage win, still can back up the Maglia Rosa. So it's risky, but could work out.
Because he doesn't know exactly, okay, like maybe Remco's launched behind and suddenly the gap is melting. They don't know that at the time, mainly because RCS, when it breaks up the road, they do not do, they do not show the G cigarette. That's not allowed. Anyway, the Leknesund has Paripantra come back, and this is where they're relaying, and Paripantra, I'm pronouncing it in the most Australian way possible. Paripantra, he relays with Leknesund on the 3K flat section, and he's like 40 seconds behind him on GC, and I'm like, Lichtenson's got to take the Malia. There's pressure from the GC group behind. Now, maybe they're worried about Albanese coming from the Shadow Realm and they look stupid, maybe, because they don't know the exact gaps. But I was like, Lichtenson's got to pace you. And they're even toing in front. I'm going to the last K. Eventually, in the last kilometer, you see Lichtenstein get on the radio, and then he just goes to the front and starts pacing full gas, giving up the stage. And so the call even seemed to be made that late because Lichtenstein was trying to flick Harry Pancher through. So it is curious to me that late you'd switch to ping. Now, maybe he realized with 700 meters to go, Parapantra is pretty snappy. He's won Marseillaise, which I think is a January, on my birthday, opens the season up a couple of years ago. But he's pretty snappy. He beat Capio, I think, in that sprint. Maybe he realized, okay, I ain't beating this guy. So let's just get the Malia done and sort that out. And that's what he did. Legnesson let him out. He Parapantra comes out of his wheel with about 60 RPM quicker and puts about 17 bike lengths into Legnesson, who also keeps the pink jersey. So it's just great to see a breakaway win, Benji.
Exactly, and not only a breakaway win, but we also see Leknesund, because of that, getting into the Maglia Rosa, and next to that, Parapantra getting on the podium. So Roglic is losing 2 positions in GC. Is he washed?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think Jumbo are going to have a really hard look at themselves, letting Leknesund and Parapantra go on the breakaway and not spending. They should have spent Sam Oman and Bauman and Hessman to keep those guys out of the breakaway. So yeah, we'll see if Roglic can drop them on Bondone. Anyway, back in the GC group, Quickstep looked weak, and again
looked inexistent. Because let me just go over it for a second.
Run it through.
So Czerny drops with 12 kilometers left. It's a shock that he was still there.
Yeah.
Seri was already gone. Ballerini was already gone. Cataneo and Hirt dropped both with 6 kilometers to go. Hirt did work. I don't think Cataneo did that much during this
very
stage.
Early, yeah.
Then Van Welder drops with 5.4 kilometers to go, which is earlier than
from the
Vervaeke.
wheels, because Vervaeke was keeping Remco in position, eating some wind.
Exactly. And like you say, Vervaeke is still there, but he also drops 400 meters later at 5K to go. So we've got 2 kilometers of climbing where Remco is completely isolated. If those riders had a bad day, this is the best day to have a bad day in this Grand Tour. But I would have expected a bit more from some of those riders. But then again, they partially shot their own knees at the start of the stage by overextending with their team.
Did Van Wilder self-drop because Ineos were pacing? I think
they weren't yet.
I think 0% chance. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think Ineos wasn't necessarily training at the front, like as in training, like an actual train, not training at the front. It looked like a training tempo.
It's in their DNA, dude. Ineos, I'm like, and this is where the Gegenhardt Thomas thing is. I'm like, if you're going for podium with Gegenhardt's got to be in good shape after that TT. He's got to have some big numbies. And you saw what he did in Alps on these sort of finishes. You saw what he did in Valenciana. I would back myself if I was Gegenhardt against Almeida to take a few seconds here. I really would. And Ineos, Remco's completely alone. They just went back to and I thought, at this point, okay, they're pacing to keep Remco in pink. It's 5,000 IQ. But then at the end, they really weren't. It was kind of just a bigger group. They didn't spend Sivakov to pace full gas. So that was not what they were doing.
No.
I think they just paced to keep G and Teo safe and not losing any time.
I think so as well. That's the only thought I can think of is that they did it to kind of demoralize Remco and Primoz from making a move here.
Yeah.
And therefore, maybe Thomas doesn't lose time because he's not at the level necessarily that they expect him to be at the moment. But like you said earlier in this podcast, that prevents Gegenhardt from gaining time on other top 3 riders.
Yep.
So if Gegenhardt is the one they end up going for at the end of this Grand Tour, then this might have been a moment where they lost a few potential seconds on riders that are also fighting for the podium.
Like, does Caruso drop? Does Carthy drop? Does Almeida drop? I don't know. Maybe none of them do. Maybe one does. Maybe 2 do. But if you got good legs, then you want to take advantage of it. It's like Hindley last year. Did Ineos really test Hindley every day they could have in the Giro last year? I would say no. And so should Jumbo have also tested Remco? With Remco isolated, I mean, should Koos have done a hard lead out for Roglic to send it and see what Remco had? I don't know. Probably Remco, 99% chance marks him, sits in the wheel. And maybe if it was an uphill finish, it's different because, yeah, okay, Remco and Roglic, they are significantly better than Sivakov, for example.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to pace the last 3Ks of flat and downhill full gas against Sivakov, Toulouse, and Aronsman, and you're going to gain 5 seconds. It's like when Lopez attacked in the Vuelta 21. Remember, he attacked really early on that shallow climb, and Koos literally just rode and held him at 10 seconds, and the other GC guys sprinted, and he gained no time.
I don't want to talk about it too much because it hits me hard in the heart. That stage where Nibali attacked in that one of his last Giros, where Moscon crashed following his attack, and then he gained about 3 seconds crossing the line. There was a flat part after. Was that the one where Bennett and someone were fighting?
Vendrame, maybe. Well,
no, was it Brambilla
Venturini.
with Bennett or
Brambilla, Venturini, or Vendrame? It's one of those three.
Vendrame won the stage, I think.
Yeah.
Brambilla was fighting with George Bennett, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Brambilla punched another guy and got disqualified years ago.
That's a different one. That's a different one. Brambilla's a very, very big fighter, apparently.
Feisty guy, yeah. Anyway, I mean, we're probably overanalyzing it. I thought, at the end of the day, the GC group just wrote it in. Bowman sprinted and Vlasov sprinted. So it is what it is. Learnings from... I should read out the top 10 for completeness. It was actually a good stage. I enjoyed it quite a lot. But Harry Pancher wins the stage. That's a really good result for AG2R, who I wouldn't say have had the best season so far. O'Connor's been a little bit crook. I think before Catalunya and the classics were terrible. So that was that. And so this is a big stage win for them as well. With, FDJ, Cofidis, Archaea made the break with Wawa, but FDJ and Cofidis didn't even make this breakaway. Parapancher wins ahead of Leknesund, 57 seconds to Skuens, who actually came back and dropped Gebregsgebir. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's why he should have gone on the shallower section. Albanese, Conchi, Gebregsgebir, and then Bowman, Caruso, Dunbar, Vlasov. So Richatello and Pozzo also 11 and 12.
Why is Vlasov sprinting against Dunbar, Caruso, and Bauman? Why is Dunbar sprinting? Why is anybody sprinting? Just roll over the line. You've got 17 more days to go in this Grand Tour. Spare your energy, guys. You'll need it.
Yeah, I mean,
they're bored.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're bored. McNulty lost another 5 minutes 30, probably on purpose, and maybe quick step. If Bro's thinking, is 10 minutes enough? Quick step. Is that enough for you to let me in the damn breakaway tomorrow? I can't see anyone too serious that lost.
Ballerini
time in the GC.
Ballerini finished solo behind the Gruppetto, so he must not feel too great after all the work he had to do today. Only 6 seconds, but it's 6 seconds.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there was a point in this race, and usually it does calm down, but Pedersen was, I think, dropped by the sprinters group, so he might not be fully on, because he dropped also yesterday when I didn't expect him. But there was a point today where I was like, there might be a lot of people OTL, because if they keep going like this, there's going to be trouble, but they chilled in the valley, and then, yeah. Anyway, learnings from this stage, Benji, before we go on to stage 5. What would you like to see from the other GC teams, on the assumption that we think Remco is the best time trialist here? He's got the best peak watts per kilo. What are the learnings from this stage?
I don't know. I would have liked some more fights in GC in general, whether it's people for the podium fighting each other or people for GC fighting each other. That in general, there's not much else to talk about at the moment, except for perhaps the fact that Leknesson's out of contract.
Oh, true.
We haven't really dotted on that yet, but I feel like that's a pretty important thing. And he's the kind of rider that we've said last year that was on the brink of breakout and is still on the brink of breakout. This pink jersey wearing is that a breakout? I think his stage one's a breakout, so he failed today.
Yeah, I mean,
it's gonna come, eh? He's gonna win a stage in the Giro on paper.
I mean, I picked him, and then luckily, if I'd picked him and he did today and he did this and lost the stage, I would have been spewing. But he's a good rider. Yeah, good rider. But it's kind of like, is he a GC rider? Is he a time trialist? Is he a classics rider? Because DSM don't send him to any one-day races ever. Like, he literally does all stage races until September every year. So for the last 2 years, I think. So he should be good at the Ardennes, but he never gets sent to them based on his power profile and how well he went at the Arctic race circuit to steal GC on the final stage. So that's kind of a question mark to me. His 5-minute repeatability looks pretty good. Is his peak climbing really there to be a top GC guy? No. So what is he, What is he? He's a good rider. You have to do what he did today, you have to be a good rider, but does he fit in at, like, is Lawrence de Plus more valuable than Leknesund for his role? I'd probably take this version of De Plus, to be honest, based on what he did at Tour of the Alps. But Legnesund is probably overall a better rider. So for someone like Uno X,
Yeah, but
you can put him in the Tour de France breakaway. He is valuable.
exactly, and you also don't know necessarily the potential of Leknesund yet.
True.
So that's also counted. With the
young.
plus, you're like, okay, that's his max. Like,
Yeah.
if he gets back to 2019 Tour de France level, that's probably his max. I don't expect more.
That is his current level.
Okay, well,
If you could podium the Tour de France in 2019, you're good enough to be probably a third line domestique in that during 2023. The way the watts have gone after COVID. But yeah.
quick thing. Want to thank some of you might know that we're live streaming our podcast on YouTube. I want to thank Eric Guzman for donating in the chat so he can finally feed me for the first time this week.
Yeah, I've been starving, but no, I haven't been starving. We've been actually
That's
having
a joke.
We've been actually having a good time despite some trying personal issues on both ends. So it's been good to be here together. And yeah, we're here till next Monday live stream. So we hope you enjoyed that if you haven't been watching on YouTube. But anyway, tomorrow's stage from Atripalda to Salerno, 171 Ks. We might be doubling up on breakaway stages, Benji, based on Pedersen. Pedersen looks a little bit fucked to me in terms of fitness wise. He dropped early. Ackerman looked really good. Medium mountain, really hard. Like I don't know the exact Deneville meters, but this is like 4K 7.5%, 2.2K 7%, 3K 6%, 3K 4.5%. Just medium mountain all day, including a climb of 3K 8%, with about 55 Ks to go before the intermediate sprint in Battipaglia. Flat finish though. Flat finish on the coast, no wind allowed. It's in Italy. We're on the western seaboard of Italy now. Is caught in the break here?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think Court should be in the break, and Matthews and Pedersen, those two teams need to take a look at themselves and think, are we going to try and control the first half of the stage, or are we going to try and put our two leaders in the breakaway with a tug buddy?
Stages.
It's a Michael Matthews stage. Can people hear this when we're whispering? They can hear you whispering?
Michael Matthews going to win this stage. Jaco looked very, very, very strong. Filippo Zana was front and center on this climb positioning Eddie Dunbar today. He was incredibly strong yesterday. No. I think
I disagree.
You don't think Jaco can control? I
think they can, but I believe it's going to be someone else.
See, this is the difference between the stage yesterday. There's an hour and a half of recovery from the last, maybe longer, maybe even 2 hour and 45 recovery from the top of the last climb to the finish. The finish is pancake flat on the sea. Yesterday, the hard climb was in the last hour, and then there was full gas on the descent. Pedersen had to come back on the descent, and then it was a little uphill drag at the finish. Was that the reason that Bling was able to get over the line ahead of Pedersen? Maybe. Tomorrow's stage is a little bit different. So I kind of agree. This is a Michael Matthews stage. That is what it's called. But Michael Matthews stages also end in a certain way sometimes, Benji, which is Jaco looking very strong, doing a lot of work and not necessarily winning that stage. Bling will 100% top 3 the stage. But I think, first of all, Pedersen's not going to be allowed in the break. And so if you trek, you still have to chase, right? So I still think this is a group sprint. If I'm Alpecin, 100% for Groves, because his climbing's unbelievable. I think there's 3 motivated teams to chase. I think it's still the group will win.
I can confirm nobody heard you whispering.
No one heard me whispering. The noise gate. I said this is the Michael Matthews stage. Anyway.
No. It's a Jonathan Milan stage.
Yeah, I like that pick. I am a Milan booster. 3K's 8%. If I'm Jaco, I'm going to absolutely launch that with Zana.
Where, like, that one climb?
Yeah. The Oliveto Citra.
It's more than 5 minutes, eh? That's the issue, eh?
Oh, 3K's 8% we do maths. Yeah, it is.
Come on, man. It's like
7, 8 minutes.
It's like 60 kilometers afterwards for Milan to come back.
Yeah, but will Bahrain drop anyone back to chase for him?
Arashiro, Pasqualon, and the others. Suterlin?
Suterlin's pretty strong, yeah.
Yeah, Milan winning.
Milan, okay, I don't mind it. I do like Jonathan Milan.
Mairo? Nah, he wasn't really on the point last. Groves could also do it if Oldani doesn't ride in his way this time.
Yeah. Pedersen, I didn't like the look of today. I'm going to go with Caden Groves winning. I think he was kind of blocked. He was blocked by Oldani. I think he wins from Bling's wheel tomorrow. Milan, I'm not so sure. First of all, even if he makes the finish, like he's not exactly been a positioning god his whole career. Like he's also had positioning issues.
Smaller group, my friend.
Smaller group, he can bully guys as well. You know, there are only about 5 serious sprinters here, and he'll put Albanese into the bin, you know, or Anna Marit. If they come up, he'll get those elbows out. So, yeah. Okay. I went with Groves, you went with Milan. So we don't think the break, we don't think it'll be a big break despite the hard start.
Probably, but hey, we're here to be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. It could be an interesting stage. There's another one to watch from Kilometer Zero on GCN Plus for the early break formation, but I am very, very happy with this Giro so far. I must say, compared to last year, like these stages have been really, really entertaining.
You're right. The break will probably win this.
It's a hard start, isn't it? Like 4K, 7.5% is really hard.
Like, and the thing is with Magnus Cort Nielsen, he can be so shit in stages that are like sprint oriented or hilly sprints. And then suddenly he shows up and he's like, Magnus Cort Nielsen, I'm going to win this stage.
I'm changing.
Magnus Cort wins?
Colin Bowman.
Get the fuck out of here.
From the break.
Magnus Cort Nielsen beats him in the sprint. I've also changed.
Cord will drop. Cord looks bad.
Cord will regenerate and come back and beat him.
I'm changing my pick again. Pascal Ackermann from the breakaway.
Oh, he's actually been looking
great
today.
Dude, he's climbing so well. He's in G1 with a group of 40 after the first categorized climb. Ackermann from the break, because he ain't winning the group sprint.
But then again, he wasn't there on the hilly sprint yesterday.
Yeah, fuck. Okay.
Changing your pick again?
Nah, Ackermann from the break, the most ridiculous possible.
Mate. We always forget, if we don't know it, it all comes back to Joao Almeida.
Almeida for sure dropping on one of these descents. Poor guy. Anyway, I think his descending was fine, and then I think the crash yesterday has given him the wobbles again, if I had to guess. Anyway, break formation will be interesting tomorrow. Maybe it's two Cortec guys, and yeah, but it really shouldn't be. Other guys like Bauman and the people I said really should be trying to get in the break.
It all depends on whether the teams like the Matthews team or the Peterson team or the Milan team or the DSM team, if they all work together to keep the break in check, then it's not going to be a break.
To not let a big break go.
But if those teams are like, Court will go in the break, so we've got Matthews, let's put him in the break with a teammate, that kind of stuff, then you're going to see the situation where the break will win.
But UAE are going to go full to get 2 guys in this break. Ulisi and McNulty and Covey, yeah, they will go full to get guys in the break.
He was in the Gruppetto today, Covey, so who knows?
Yeah, but medium mountain, he's better. He can't long climb. I don't know how he won a Fadai. That was a mystery to me. Well, he attacked early. It was good tactics. Anyway, that's all from us today. We're very, very pumped up. It's been a great couple of days of racing, and we're looking forward to tomorrow's stage. Thanks, as always, for listening to our recap, and we'll see you with Stage 6 recap tomorrow with Legnesund in that Maglia Rosa. Ciao.